What happens when a quiet black kid from the neighborhood is told he can't try out just because he might scare the white team? You won't believe how one unofficial game turned everything upside down and left an entire school speechless. If you had walked up to Tavon Harris that summer and asked him what he wanted most, he wouldn't have said money, a new phone, or some viral attention on social media. He wouldn't have mentioned girls' fame or even dreams of playing in the NBA. Nah, Taven had a simpler, deeper answer. He just wanted to make the team, not to be the star, not to be carried off the court with chants of his name echoing off gym walls. No, sir, he just wanted to belong, to be part of something that made the world make sense for a while, something louder than loneliness, steadier than silence, something that had rhythm, structure, a heartbeat, a team. And on that day, hot, sticky, with the kind of southern heat that wraps around your bones like a wet blanket straight out the devil's laundry room, he stood outside the Westbridge Middle School gym, clutching a half-filled bottle of water in one hand and a worn-out duffel bag in the other. Inside that bag, a second-hand jersey and a pair of sneakers that had seen better days but still knew how to move. You could say the same about Tavon himself. He was the first one there. He always was. Taven believed that the first impression didn't start when people noticed you. It started when they didn't. When you were there before the clock started ticking, before the lights were on, doing the quiet things nobody claps for. And so, while the gym was still waking up, Taven was setting cones, pumping air into saggy basketballs, wiping dust off the bleachers with an old towel he found in the supply closet. No music, no complaining, no phone out for proof. Just quiet work. But respect? Respect ain't handed out like candy, especially not at Westbridge, and especially not if you're a black kid from Eastwood Heights, the part of town where the sirens go off more than the ice cream truck, and folks learn early how to spot trouble before trouble sees them. Taven had learned all that, and yet he still carried himself like dignity was his birthright, not a permission slip. The moment Coach Doyle stepped into the gym, Taven felt the shift. Doyle walked in tall and stiff, with the kind of face that always looked like it had a bad taste in its mouth and was mad the rest of the world didn't notice. You could smell the fake before he even opened his mouth. That classic, "I'm not racist, I just tell it like it is," energy wrapped in khaki shorts and a whistle. Taven stepped forward with a polite smile and a steady hand. "Good morning, sir. I'm Taven Harris. Came early to help out, hoping to try out today." Doyle didn't shake his hand, didn't say thanks, didn't even look the boy in the eye. Just walked past him like he was a piece of old gym tape stuck to the floor. One of the assistant coaches, nervous-looking kid fresh out of college, tried to recover the awkwardness. Coach, that's Harris, 8th grade, Section B. He's number 24 on the list." Doyle stopped, turned, real slow like he'd just heard someone curse in church. "Take him off." The assistant blinked. "Sir?" "I said take him off the list," Doyle said, flat and sharp. "We don't need distractions today, especially not the kind that'll spook the rest of the team. Let the kid join the chess club or something." That silence that followed, it wasn't quiet. It was loud, deafening, the kind of silence that sticks to your skin and makes your ears ring. Taven stood there, still holding his water bottle, still wearing that jersey folded with pride in his bag, and realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message, loud and clear. He wasn't being judged by his jump shot, his footwork, his hustle. He was being judged by the shade of his skin, period. Because in this gym, black wasn't strong, it wasn't determined, it wasn't ready to compete. In this gym, black meant threat, meant trouble, meant don't upset the white kids. Nobody spoke up. Not one of the boys already warming up, not one of the parents sitting on the bleachers. Somebody looked his way, couldn't tell if it was pity or guilt, and quickly looked away. That's how racism works best. Quietly, when no one wants to make noise. Taven didn't cry, he didn't shout, he just picked up his bag and walked, calm, slow. each step echoing through a hallway that suddenly felt 10 miles long. Somewhere behind him, a pale kid with freckles muttered under his breath, "That ain't right." But his voice was no louder than a dropped pin on a gym floor. What made it worse? The day before, Taven had climbed up on a rusted ladder to help Doyle's own son, Justin, retrieve his sneakers from the roof of the locker room. Some other kids had tossed them up there as a joke. Taven didn't even hesitate. No camera, no praise, just did it. And now, that same boy sat courtside chewing gum, watching Tavon walk away like he was nobody, like none of it had happened, like kindness didn't matter. That evening at home, his mother stirred the pot of mac and cheese, the kind with real cheese, baked with a little burnt crust on the sides like Grandma used to make. "How was your day?" she asked without turning around. Taven shrugged. "It was fine." "You make the team?" He hesitated. "Didn't work out." She turned then, looked at him, long, quiet, but she didn't press. She just said, "You hungry?" And he nodded. Because some days the only answer to the world's wrongs is a plate of warm food and the silence of someone who knows too well. The next morning, the whispers started. See, Westbridge wasn't New York. It wasn't even Birmingham. It was the kind of small town where secrets traveled faster than cell service. And Tavon's removal from the list? Oh, it was already making rounds. By the third period, Ms. Henderson, a no-nonsense history teacher with a stare sharp enough to slice excuses, stood in front of the class and said, "Today we're going to talk about systemic bias. Can anyone give me an example?" Crickets. She raised an eyebrow. "All right, let me help. Suppose a black student is told he can't try out for the basketball team because he might make the white players uncomfortable. Is that systemic?" Justin's neck turned red before his face even caught up. "That's not what happened," he blurted. "You were there?" Ms. Henderson asked, arms folded. He stood up, walked out, slammed the door. Taven sat still, said nothing. But inside, something was shifting. Something steady, clear. This wasn't about basketball anymore. This wasn't about him. This was about fear, about what happens when a black boy walks into a space and doesn't shrink. At lunch, he sat with his apple, reading an article about perimeter defense strategies. While some kids debated video games, Taven was breaking down tape, mentally, strategically, quietly building a blueprint for something bigger than revenge, something surgical. That night, he fired up the old family laptop, the one with a cracked screen and a battery that lasted just long enough for a second win. He scrolled through videos he'd recorded of past team practices. He studied the defense, watched for patterns. One stood out. Justin always leaned left too early on his coverage. Taven smiled. He didn't want payback. He wanted data, precision, answers. If they wouldn't give him a seat at the table, he'd learn the blueprint and build his own damn gym. What came next changed everything, and you won't want to miss what happened when Tavon got his chance. 3 days had passed, just 3. Not forever, not a blink. Just enough time for a story to bloom, twist and twist again as it passed from hallway to hallway, locker to locker, whispered like holy gossip after Sunday service in the back pews of a Baptist church. And oh, people were whispering. Taven didn't chase the noise. He didn't try to explain. He didn't walk up to groups to defend himself or slide into conversations hoping someone would speak up for him. He stayed in his lane, kept his head down and did what he knew best. Studied, read, worked. After school, while the rest of the boys scattered to the courts outside or slouched in the cafeteria swapping videos, Tavon was in the gym. Alone. No coach, no teammates, no jersey. Just that same worn basketball. The one with his older brother's name, Jamal, scratched into the leather like a scar that wouldn't heal. Every afternoon he drilled. 3-point shots over imaginary defenders. Footwork through cones he set up himself. Hands tight, elbows in. And if someone peeked into the gym, maybe to grab a water bottle or check if a friend was still around, they saw him. Alone, focused, unshakable. And more than one of them muttered under their breath, "Man, that kid is serious." But saying it doesn't mean standing with him. That's the difference. Then came Friday, the break in the clouds, the moment fate knocked just a little, not with a bang, but with a question. See, there was a scrimmage planned that day, a friendly game between the Thunder, the other eighth grade team, and the Stormhawks. A few players were out sick, some had after-school programs, so the roster was short. Mr. Green, the gym supervisor, a man who had seen enough in his life to know when the air started getting funny, stepped to the middle of the court and called out with his raspy voice, "Anyone want to sub in? You got sneakers? You got heart? You're in." For 1 second, nobody moved. The air stilled. Boys glanced around, waiting for someone else to volunteer. Because this was Coach Doyle's house, his court, his rules. And when Doyle had spoken earlier that week, even offhand, even quietly, everybody heard it like it was carved in stone. Taven Harris? Not welcome. But then, from the corner of the gym, from the shadows where the air still held yesterday's dust, Taven stepped forward. No theatrics, no swagger. No, I told y'all. Just walked out. Calm, straight-spined, eyes forward. "I'll play," he said. And the silence got heavier, like the world had stopped mid-step to watch. Coach Doyle, arms folded on the sideline, slowly turned his head. His neck moved like it hurt to acknowledge the moment. He stared at Green. "You're joking," Doyle said, his words soaked in irritation. "You're really going to let him play?" "You said anyone," Green replied, voice steady, not defiant, just tired, like a man who'd spent decades biting his tongue and had finally decided to let his jaw relax. "It's just a practice game," Doyle muttered, like spitting out a piece of gristle. "It's nothing serious." Then to Tavon, a glance sharp enough to cut skin, the kind of look that said, "Go ahead, show off. It still won't matter." They handed Tavon a backup jersey. It was a size too small, clung in all the wrong places. The sneakers he'd brought with him flopped a little at the heel. They weren't made for highlight reels. But the way he stepped on that court, like he'd been invited to a ball and didn't care who thought his suit wasn't tailored. The first half was a ghost story. They froze him out. Not one pass came his way. Justin, Doyle's golden child, self-appointed king of the court, ran the floor like he had his father's whistle in his pocket, called every play, took every shot, and when Taven made a clean cut to the basket and raised a hand, ignored again. Once in the second quarter, Justin accidentally body-checked him. Not hard enough for the ref to whistle it, but just enough to send a message. "You're a prop," Justin hissed. "That's it. A warm body. Don't forget it." Taven said nothing. Not because he was scared, but because his time hadn't come yet. And he knew. Patience was power. Then came the second half. The Stormhawks, so confident, so loud, started to wobble. Missed passes, lazy defense. Thunder came at them with quick breaks, sharp cuts. The lead slipped. The tension in Doyle's shoulders started to rise. His jaw clenched so tight you could hear it from the bleachers. And then, as if by mistake, the ball rolled loose toward the wing. Taven was there. He scooped it up, shot, three-pointer, clean, straight through the net like it knew where it belonged. A hush. "Lucky," someone muttered. Maybe Justin. Next play. Another scramble. Taven caught the rebound, stepped back, dribbled past one defender, then two, and laid it in. Doyle stiffened. Then the third. Oh, that third one wasn't just a basket. That was a declaration. Ball loose near center court. Justin sprinted. Taven met him. Chest to chest. They both reached. Taven didn't flinch. Snatched it like he owned it. Pivot. Crossover. Justin stumbled, slipped, landed hard. And Tavon stepped back, shot, held his follow-through. Swish! The gym didn't explode in cheers. It cracked. Like a dam. The bleachers rumbled. Someone gasped. Someone else let out a whoa. And somewhere in the corner, a junior varsity player stood up without realizing it. Doyle, pale, tight-lipped, rage simmering under a professional facade. And Justin, well, Justin charged. Chest bump. "You don't belong here," he shouted. "This is our team." Tavon didn't blink. "I'm here," he said ice cold. "And you? You're on the floor." Whistle. Technical foul. Coach Doyle finally snapped. "Get him off the court," he roared. "Now!" Green stepped forward. "No," he said sharp. "This is my gym. He stays." The Stormhawks lost. Tavon's side took the win. But it wasn't just a victory on the scoreboard. It was a full collapse of the story Doyle had written. Page by page, Tavon had rewritten it. On the court. In public. With everyone watching. After the game, one of the Stormhawks, pale kid, curly red hair, maybe 14, walked over, could barely look Tavon in the eye. "Hey man," he said quietly. "Sorry we didn't say anything earlier. We knew it was wrong. We just, yeah, thanks for showing us." Tavon nodded, not out of forgiveness, just clarity. "Just play right," he said. "That's enough." Doyle packed up without a word. Even Justin didn't meet anyone's gaze. But the next morning? Oh, people were talking. Teachers, parents, staff, and not in whispers this time. By lunch, word had reached the principal's office. A formal inquiry was opened. Coach Doyle's words, "spooking the white kids," didn't just float in the air anymore. They were coming back to bite. Because when the truth hits hardwood, it bounces loud. This is it. The fire is lit. Stick around to see how Tavon shuts the system down and takes his place. Not just on the team, but in the fight. The next morning, Tavon didn't wake up to his alarm clock. No buzz, no vibration, no anxious chime dragging him out of sleep. He woke up to something quieter, sharper. A silence so still, so balanced it felt like it came from inside. Not emptiness, not numbness, but that rare kind of calm that only shows up after a storm, when everything inside finally sits where it's supposed to be. That was new. He got up, washed his face, pulled on his old sneakers with the busted heel and the laces that curled like dried-out string. Then he stepped outside. The morning air was cool, not cold, not stiff, just that early hint of spring buried under layers of winter's leftovers. No applause, no celebration, no parade of cheers. Just a quiet street and a boy who knew the court was no longer out of reach. He wasn't just that kid from the edge of the neighborhood anymore. He was the one who had turned the whole board upside down. When he walked into class, the energy was different, sharply different. People looked at him now, and not through him. They didn't whisper, didn't point, didn't laugh behind notebooks. They watched, respectfully, carefully, some even nervously, like he was carrying something heavy and sacred that could shatter if you reached for it the wrong way. One kid, normally front and center, actually scooted over to let Tavon have the seat by the window. The same seat that used to be reserved for the teacher's favorite, or the class clown. Tavon used to sit by the door, near the cold air draft that smelled like cafeteria grease. But now, everything had shifted. The real surprise came after the last bell rang. Mr. Green, same old gym teacher in pants that looked like they'd been ironed with a fist and a prayer, approached him in the hallway. His face wore that familiar look of a man who'd lived through too much to sugarcoat a thing. "Tavon," he said quietly, "we got a committee meeting this afternoon. Selection review. You want to be in the room?" Tavon raised an eyebrow. Not hostile, just curious. "You think they'll let me in?" Green let out a slow, half smile. The kind men wear when they've seen both failure and redemption up close and know exactly what both taste like. "Son, I don't think they got much choice anymore." That meeting, it went down in the library. Rows of dusty encyclopedias and outdated atlases made bad wallpaper for a showdown that had been a long time coming. In the room sat the principal, 2 assistant administrators, 3 parents, each more self-important than the last, and of course, Coach Doyle, who looked like a pot of milk just before it boils over. Thick-faced, tight-lipped, and holding back the kind of anger that doesn't build character. It breaks it. Principal Brian opened things clean and sharp. We're here to review the complaints regarding potential bias in team selections. Doyle didn't even wait his turn. This is ridiculous, he barked. He didn't fit. That's it. Did you see what he wore? That tattered uniform? Those off-brand shoes? Taven stood, calm, voice level. Yeah, those shoes. I beat your son in them. Silence dropped like a mic. Someone in the back coughed. Principal Brian didn't smile, but her eyes said everything. We're not here to discuss fashion, coach, she said smoothly. We're reviewing athletic performance and leadership integrity, and yesterday's match raised questions about both. Integrity, Doyle snapped, rising halfway out his chair. I was protecting team unity. Green finally leaned forward, hands folded, steady. Translation, he said, slow and dry. You didn't want a black kid outplaying your boy, but he did, and now you're scrambling. Doyle's chair clattered backward as he stood up fully, red creeping up his neck. That kid humiliated me. No, Taven said, voice still even. You did that yourself. I just played the game. That was all it took. The room shifted, not in chaos, but in clarity. People saw it, heard it, felt it. That this wasn't about one game, one boy, or one bad decision. It was about a system that had run unchecked, until someone finally stood still. By the next day, the word was everywhere. Doyle was on extended leave. Nobody used the word fired, but everybody knew. The gym had a new lead, Mr. Green, and Justin? Well, Justin was still there, still on the team, but not as captain, not as the golden boy, just another player in the rotation. He walked quieter now, didn't bark orders, didn't slam lockers. Sometimes he looked at Tavon like he wanted to say something. An apology? A challenge? It didn't matter. Tavon wasn't waiting for either. The true finale? That came during the first official practice under Green. Taven stepped into the gym wearing his new uniform, white and crisp, like a blank canvas with his name finally written on it. Number 24 gleamed in red on the back. The team had gathered. The whistle blew. All right, Green said. Let's see what you got, Harris. And there he was again. Justin, across from him, eyes sharp, movements tight, like nothing had changed, except everything had. First possession. Justin tried to drive the lane. Taven stepped in. Body met body, solid. You're not getting past me, Taven said. Not loud, not cruel, just true. Next play, Taven caught a pass, faked a drive, and sent a no-look assist across the court. Basket, cheers. Even players who'd once kept their distance now clapped his hand. But it was the third moment that sealed it. Ball in his hands, clock ticking. Justin again in front of him. The court disappeared. The gym faded. It was just two players. One truth. Taven rose, shot, network, that clean ripple through the rim. The gym didn't explode this time. It hushed, reverent, like it knew something sacred had happened. Justin stood still. No words, just watched. Green whistled, clapped once. Now that, he said, that's basketball. In the locker room, Taven untied his shoes slowly. The rubber soles still carried yesterday's dust. That same red-headed player from the last game walked up, hesitated. You didn't just save a game, he said, voice low. You saved us from cowardice. Taven looked down at his hands, calloused, tired, steady. I'm no hero, he said. I'm just a player. But if the system won't play fair, then it's not a team. It's a cage. The boy nodded, walked off, left Taven sitting there, alone, but not isolated. That night, Taven walked home different, not like a winner, like a man who had stopped asking permission to be seen. He didn't break the rules. He proved they'd been crooked all along. When he stepped into the house, his mother was already waiting. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She smiled. On the table sat a plate of mac and cheese. You hungry, baby? Tavon grinned. I earned it.